Hey, good afternoon, Greg. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you. Good afternoon to you too, Asher.
And I see you've got your alumni Georgia Tech shirt on.
I
So,
know, I thought, it's been a long time since I've worn this, and uh, I'm not making any kind of a statement by wearing it. I did work there, but yeah, more serendipity that I just happened to have it on today. So,
got you. I always like to ask this question to every guest. For anyone who doesn't know you, who do you say you are?
who do I say I am? That sounds like a challenging question. I'm not usually asked that question. So I am a person who um, has always been fascinated by people, what motivates them, what inspires them, how to get the best out of them. I love meeting people that tend to be more quiet and trying to draw them out of themselves because I'm convinced if you look deeply enough into everybody, you'll find something interesting and beautiful,
Mm. Wow.
oftentimes surprisingly compelling.
Wow.
But we often don't take the time to slow down and pay enough attention to really engage people. So, how's that?
That's great. I agree with you wholeheartedly with that. And I think that's part of the motivation for why I started this podcast because, or especially at the time, it just seemed like pre-pandemic, but all the time everyone just seems really busy with life and work, and it's hard to slow down and kind of pay attention to what's close by. Whether you take a vacation trip to go overseas or you go visit another state, and then you're so interested and invested in what's in someone else's background or backyard. But most people that live in an area, they couldn't really tell you, oh, hey, unless they know these are the touristy things to do. They're like, no, I just go to work, go home. I'm not really worried about that. But like when you actually take the time out to go see these things, you're like, oh, I didn't realize there were all these gyms like right here in my backyard. Like I can go a couple hundred miles, or I can also go like 10 miles or 5 miles down the road to like the local park. I can meet my neighbors, get to know who they are, not just like for a time of crisis, but then when something does happen, it's like, oh, like I have people I can lean on, and the world doesn't feel so big at times when you're able to take things in, and it's not always just like in a mad panic where everyone's pushing you and prodding you every which way.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I could say a whole lot about that that whole idea. When I we lived in Boston for 13 years, and I would be at an intersection, and this is the beauty of Boston.
Mm.
We'd be at an intersection that I had driven through hundreds of times, and I remember this distinctly happening, but it happened on several occasions. I pulled up, red light, I stopped, and can't go. So instead of fidgeting with something in the car, I didn't have a cell phone at the time to look at, which is what we all do now.
Mhm.
And so I'm just kind of looking around outside, and I see this little stone, sort of a little monument thing that has always been there that I never paid attention to. And it said George Washington did such and such here in 17 blah blah blah. Oh my gosh, that happened right there. I've never seen that before.
Mhm.
I've just been so busy driving through here. I think that's analogous to how we live our lives in so many ways, not just with people, but all kinds of things.
Mhm.
I read a book about a year ago called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And I heard somebody by the name of Richard Foster say, the slower I walk, the more I see. And I think that's one of the biggest secrets to life. I think we try to get as much as we can out of life by
Mhm.
rushing as much as we can. And that's an elusive deception because, like we're saying, when you rush, you miss the good stuff because you're never present. You're never in the moment. You're always trying to get to the next thing, and it's never enough.
Mhm.
Whereas the opposite is the way, I think, to find the beauty, to find the meaning, to slow down.
I agree with you. I, what I guess what encouraged you to value the slowing down part of life? Like, what encourage you to like take things in and not just be hurried along?
I think that on some level, there's always been an awareness of that. I grew up in Colorado, and I can remember significant things in my childhood by just magnificent nature scenes that we came across that were stunning. As a matter of fact, my wife and I were out in Utah. We took a 12-day vacation in Utah last September. And the first national park we went to was Zion. And the
Mm.
very first day hiking in Zion, I don't know if you've ever been out there, but you have these unbelievable walls of rock, right? That are sometimes 1,000 or more feet high, right next to you. And we were walking out, and it was silent, just so quiet. And I was looking down at the trail, and it hit me, if I live my life like this, if I just walked, paid attention to the trail I was on, I wouldn't even realize the unbelievable silent grandeur of my surroundings. I could theoretically walk on that path completely oblivious to that. And for me, that I think that has happened more really because of the spiritual journey that I have been on over the last 10 years. And so that's why I bought that book by John Mark Comer called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. I've come to see that, and I think getting older has helped me with this as well, helped me to realize that, like I said, there's too many, really interesting, really important and compelling things that you miss if you're going too fast. So as I've gotten older, I think as I've gotten wiser, hopefully, as I've gotten deeper, I've been more interested in purposely slowing down. And where I work, at the leadership training programs I'm in, I say something to that effect in almost every single class, the need for us to slow down.
Mm. How do you how do you feel people take to that?
I think people see it. I think people, I don't ever get people like, nah, what are you talking about? People will typically, that is so true. But to know that in your head and to actually live your life that way are two different things.
Right.
So I sometimes will see the people will agree with it, but then I'll see kind of a pained look on their face, like, how do I do that?
Mm.
Because everything in the corporate world, everything in our world in general, like I said, is gearing us up more and more to go faster, do more, 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 more. And if you're working for a company for any company,
Mm.
but especially a publicly held company, the investors are looking to get a return on their investment. And so they want profitability. So you need to do more. That's the thing you constantly feel. And I work
Right.
for a very high energy company too. So it's part of our DNA and how we operate as an organization. Go, go, go. Very,
Mm.
very driven.
I guess have you seen um people kind of change the mentality from, okay, I can do more, 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 but when I've slowed down and I've done maybe a little bit less with more focused, directed attention, I've actually gotten a lot more done and I've freed up space and room for like new ideas and new ways to say, hey, here's how we can profit, or here's how we can drive or open up a lane that we weren't paying attention to before because we were just like, we've got to make this number by this quarter, by this fiscal year.
Yes, it's kind of like in anything. Um, some people really get that, and I love it when someone says to me, you got to speed up by slowing down.
Mm.
And maybe I didn't, bring that idea up to them. They just were aware of it themselves. But yeah, I've seen people really embrace that and really work that into their own lives.
Mm.
And then there are other people that, excuse me, it just seems to like water off a duck's back. It just seems to go kind of in one ear and out the other, because there's too much pressure from above them
Mm.
to produce. And so they just fall back. And I can see it in myself. I know this and I'm trying to increasingly live this way. but it depends on the situation. I'm around my boss and there's a whole lot going on and you got to perform. Then I too can slip right back into acting in a way that like I don't know
Hmm.
what the value of that.
Is there is there something you would practice yourself or usually give someone as a way to kind of like recalibrate or regroup to say, hey, when it feels like all hell's breaking loose first thing Monday morning, here's what you can do.
Well, sorry, I got scratching my throat. One of the things I tell people, I try to not be too spiritually oriented in my interactions with people out in life. I'm a very spiritually oriented person, but I'm
Mhm.
not trying to preach it on people or make people feel uncomfortable. But I do start most of my days with some meditation. I'll read and then I'll meditate. I spend some time. It's not Eastern transcendental meditation. It's more what I call centering prayer. But
Mhm.
it's not prayer where I'm really talking. It's prayer where I'm listening.
Mhm.
It's more what they call contemplative prayer, and that starts me off slowing down. So you can do that in the middle of the day. Just take a walk.
Mhm.
Get up from your desk and take a walk. Yeah, or go sit in a different place and just try to drop your agendas for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It can be incredibly energizing and life-giving. And kind of like the old book, The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by
Mhm.
Stephen Covey. I find it a growing, as I get older, a growing number of people in their 20s and 30s have no idea what that book is.
Mhm.
Um, but it was a classic in the late 1900s.
Mhm.
And the seventh habit is called sharpen the saw. And it's an analogy where one person, there's two lumberjacks and they're in a competition to saw through a log
Mhm.
to see who can saw all the way through the log the fastest. So there they go, and they're sawing, 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 and their saws are getting dull. And one lumberjack decides he stops halfway through the huge log,
Mhm.
and he takes his saw out and he sits down and starts sharpening his saw. And the other person thinks, "What an idiot! He's slow. He's stopping. I am going to certainly beat him now." And he just keeps going, keeps going, keeps going.
Mhm.
Well, the person takes the time to really get his saw sharp, puts the saw back inside the log, starts sawing again. He wins
Mhm.
because every stroke with a newly sharpened saw is more productive than many more strokes with a dull saw.
Right. I definitely agree with you on that because I found myself recently being on a new project and trying to wrap my head around the vastness of it. And every time that I would feel bogged down, it's like, okay, let me get up, go walk around the parking lot, just take 5 minutes, or just step away from like staring at a computer screen for a bit. And then when it was time to go at the end of the day, it's like, okay, you did all you could do today. You can come back and regroup. And then in the silence, either driving home or coming back, all of a sudden it feels like a rush of ideas would come in. And I wouldn't necessarily have to write them down. But when I went in to the office the next morning or when I got back from that walk, it just felt like, okay, I can write down one, two, three things. So long as I start with this first thing, let me get that one done. And then I'm further along than I was before. And then also I found myself setting alarm clocks like every 2 hours just to say, hey, if whatever you're working on right now isn't, if it's not going, like go walk, like change something, go talk to somebody else. That
Yep.
way you don't just spend 5 hours, 10 hours of the day just trying to do one thing and it just isn't working out. And you're sitting here thinking, man, I just wasted a whole day, a whole week, a whole month. And it's like,
Yep.
like, of course, we don't have time to just be like, oh, you just didn't turn in your assignments for a week. It's all good. No, like, you're gonna have somebody barking at you to say, hey, why is this not done yet? What is the holdup?
Yeah, it's it's so good. I mean, it's such a a true and powerful principle. There's a famous story about a quote from Einstein, and I'm sure I'm not going to get that, but the essence of it that I remember was he said, if I had 1 hour to solve a problem on which my life depended, I would spend 55 minutes asking myself what the right question was,
Mm.
and then only 5 minutes trying to solve that question. And
Wow.
I think what Einstein is hinting at is exactly what we're talking about. Let me try to get my mind in first into sort of a receiving, mindset mode, and really frame the right question
Mhm.
before trying to solve it. So yeah, I think this is a real key to wisdom in our day. Really, is trying to get away from that go go go.
Gotcha. Do you need a minute for some water?
I don't have any water sitting here, so I'm not going to get up and go in the other room. I'm fine. I'm fine.
Gotcha. Okay. Um, so I guess given that it is the summertime now, and I guess a lot of people are either taking time for holidays and uh are I guess are you still with the school system now, or you mentioned you're working more in the private sector?
Yeah, I am. I actually left Georgia Tech back in 2013,
Mm.
so I've been gone from there 12 years.
Gotcha.
I, I work for a company called Randstad, and it's
Mm.
actually the second time I've worked for them. So they're a Dutch company, and but their North American headquarters is here in Atlanta. So
Gotcha.
yeah, so yeah, I'm in their learning and development department.
Gotcha. I guess what I was getting at with it just being summer, it's like people are a lot more active than during the winter time. So with especially being in Atlanta with all the hustle and bustle, like have you found things differently this year, or like are you discovering anything new in the area being with the company?
No, well, I mean, there's constantly new things going on within the company. Are you asking me about like life in Atlanta
Yeah,
or within the
life in
company?
Atlanta.
Well, I think there's been a big, I was talking about this the other night with someone. I think, of course, the pandemic changed everything. And I think for all of us, spending like 2 to 3 years cooped up inside, I think people, and it's been going on now for the last couple of years, but are really eager to get out, be in public, being among people, go do things. I think international travel is up. I think when you go out, like to a concert or to a play or things, there's a lot of people out. There's a lot of
Mm,
people doing things. Of course, Atlanta, I remember when I first moved here back in '99, and it got to be spring break. We had a whole lot of friends who were in our same stage of life,
mm,
and so that we all had kids in like middle school. And when it got to be spring break week, everybody was gone.
yeah.
Everybody just packed up and left, and I had never lived somewhere where everybody did that like that. And I was like, wow, that's shocking. So I think around the holidays, we just had the July 4th holiday a couple weeks ago, and that whole week traffic was down. You could tell. I think people were taking that week off because they got one free day with fourth off.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think there's a lot of hustle and bustle, and at the same time, I think people are cherishing that vacation time more, and I think frankly, more companies are also making it a requirement that people take their PTO, personal time off.
Mm,
I know the company that I work in, like I said, we are historically high energy driven.
mhm.
And what has happened in many cases is people would get to the end of the year and they were just so busy they didn't hardly take any time off.
Right.
So our company's pretty generous with time off. But if you didn't use it, people would get to the end of the year and they've changed it. They could carry 80 hours over
Mm,
from one year to the next. But
mhm.
you'd have people, and that's 2 full weeks. you'd have people that had 5 weeks of PTO that they had not used.
Right.
And so I think a lot of companies have recognized that this work-life balance thing is a serious thing. They're going to get more productivity out of your people if they will take their time.
Hmm.
So I know our company now reduced it. You can only carry 40 hours over. No, is that even true? Yeah, I think it's 40 now. So they're trying to force people to take more of their PTO. I think another part of it too is they don't want people to like leave the company and have a whole month of pay, free pay that's due them.
Right.
You know, they want them to use it more in real time. So.
That makes sense. I guess I haven't been in Atlanta since like lived in Atlanta since around that time, 2013, and just like driving through Atlanta occasionally, either to get from North Georgia to South Georgia or coming from East Georgia now. It's like I just see traffic and sometimes I forget about there's still the beauty in Atlanta. It's like once you're there and you're walking around, it's not so bad, but when you're coming in off of like more so 85 to 75 or trying to get around the 285 loop, it just feels like, man, like you, it's like it, maybe it's a small sacrifice for what you get in the city. So I was just kind of curious about that, like staying in Atlanta for so long. Have you had the itch to like, maybe we just move to somewhere smaller, but then like
Yeah,
maybe you miss out on the
yeah,
good.
yeah. That's well, we're at a stage now where we have grandchildren.
Mm,
So that anybody who's a grandparent knows that that dictates in a large degree where you live. Because
gotcha.
of course, we would love to move to a small town in the south of France,
Hmm.
but we're not going to do that because one daughter, we have 3 daughters. One daughter is here, and 2 daughters are in Tennessee.
Mm,
Um, so, and 2 of our granddaughters are here, and one is up in Tennessee. So, yeah, I wouldn't mind moving further out of the city. Um, but I've kind of all, other than in college, I've kind of lived in the suburbs of big cities, like, and no, you know, I didn't think, I thought of this, I thought I grew up in Denver, Colorado, which
mhm.
even now is not big compared to other places, but it felt, it was the biggest city in Colorado, and it felt big living there.
Yeah.
And then we lived in Boston for 13 years, and now we live in the suburbs around Atlanta. So I am used to all the activities you can do. Go to a Braves game, you know, concerts, ballet, art museums, zoo, on and on and on. You know, there's lots of great stuff to do here.
Right.
And that's, it would be hard to not be around that.
Hmm.
But yeah, I get tired of, you know, you're, other than being at work, you know, you go out and you're shopping or whatever, you're primarily around strangers and yeah, it's busy and people are go, go, go. It would be nice to get out to a smaller town, a slower pace of life. Yeah.
Gotcha. Is there anything you're looking forward to, like being on the back half of the year? It's crazy to think that 2025 is just starting and then all of a sudden you look up and you're like, oh wow, like July's almost halfway done.
You know, it's funny because January, February, you're like, I cannot wait till it gets warm again. When you get to mid-July, you're like, I cannot wait till it cools down again.
Right.
So fall is my favorite time of year.
Mm.
So, and I love the falls in Atlanta. The weather typically stays quite warm through November. I
Hmm.
mean, not hot, but really comfortable. You know, you can be outside. So, and with all the beautiful trees, you know, changing colors and all that. So I love that time of year. Of course, I've become I'm wearing a Georgia Tech shirt, but I've
Yeah.
become a UGA football fan.
Uh-oh.
So
I
yeah,
won't tell on you. I won't tell on
yeah. Well, I just told them myself. So.
you.
I mean, I'm a Georgia Tech football fan too, and actually, they had a pretty good season last year
Yeah, they had a
for the first time.
good game last year.
They did.
I woke up and found out about it. I was like, huh, how about that?
Yeah, they gave UGA a run for their money. So, so I'm a football fan. I've always been a football fan. So I love football season and the cooler weather. You know, maybe my wife and I will try to get away. And, you know, we've, like I said, we went to these national parks in Utah last summer, but
Mm.
you can buy, when you get to my age, you can buy like a lifetime pass. It's like 80 bucks. And then that gets you into any of the federal parks
Oh,
in
well.
the country. It's 50 something parks. And that's a cool thing. We would love to go, visit more of the national parks. So,
Mhm. Do you like it for the hiking, or what do you prefer to do with the park visits?
yeah, well, of course, there's all kinds of parks. I do like the hiking, but I would also love to go down to like Key West. I would love to go to Gettysburg,
Mm.
right? And here in Atlanta, we've got Kennesaw Mountain. Then that's a national park.
Mm.
Um, so that's not, you can hike at Kennesaw Mountain, but like, so some of it would be different, depends on where you go. It would be the history. Being from the Southwest, I love the parks in the Southwest,
Hmm.
like where we went, Zion, Bryce, Capitol Reef, Arches, all that stuff. And that was about the hiking and being outside. Yeah.
Mm. Gotcha. I've definitely been looking into maybe doing some mountain bike riding. I did some surprisingly down in Tallahassee. I got a mountain bike years back and I was like, well, it's kind of flat down here, but I found a trail off of the Trails app. And when I went out there, I was like, oh, this is like you have the easy part, but then there's also the sections where if you're a professional mountain bike rider, or if you even want to do BMX style tricks and things like that, you can go down a very steep hill. And I kind of wiped out on one hill, but at least I kind of caught myself where it scraped me up a little bit. But I was like, hey, this isn't like the year before where I tripped over a tree root and then I like sprained my elbow. And then I'm sitting there like hobbling back. But at least being able to see that, and you see people out early in the morning fishing, other people are walking. It's just nice, like you're saying, to get out in the environment and just kind of take it, the smells, the sights, and all of that.
Ever been out to Utah?
No, I'd like to go. I've been hearing about it more and more.
Especially if you're doing like mountain biking. I mean, Utah is built for outdoor activities. I mean,
Mhm.
rafting, hiking, biking, you name it. Um, and the scenery is just, it's like no other place on the planet.
Mm. One thing that I've been to, where is it? Like Las Vegas. I think I visited once, and one of the things, I guess usually people would go for like the casinos and things, but I figured the Hoover Dam was nearby, and being an engineer was like that interested in that had more of my interest. And then also seeing the Grand Canyon and like actually seeing tumbleweed for the first time, I was like, oh, this isn't something they just made up in like a cartoon or something. Like there is actual piece of tumbleweed going. But seeing the red rocks is something someone had recommended to me at the car rental coming off of the airport, and just driving around for 30 minutes, I'd never seen that variety of colors with, like you were describing earlier, with rocks where you're seeing like there's your reds, your tans, your purples. Like I wasn't even sure that that was real until like the last 3 years. I focused some of my attention in doing soils engineering, where we basically dig into the ground and we identify what type of soil is there, how strong it is, and you see all kinds of things that have always been there, but you would never know unless you just dig a hole and you look. It's like, wow, like this is looks like purple gold, this shimmers like silver, and just all these neat little things just right underneath your feet. And sometimes you just get to see it nice and up close.
Yeah, I mean, there's places out out west, the Grand Canyon being one of them, where you've got rock that is 2 billion years old that's exposed.
Wow.
2 billion years old exposed. And yeah, I mean, there's yeah, like the places in Utah, but you've got like the Painted Desert where you've got it's hard to believe. It's like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it's hard to believe this is real, right? You
Right.
you couldn't make up a fantasy world that would be this amazing. But it's
Yeah.
real. Yeah.
I guess sometimes it feels like it makes all the hard work worth it to just be like, okay, well, that's why I spent a week doing that. Or it's like I got this report to just like unplug and unwind for a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, yep. All that stuff is there to enjoy, and it's amazing.
Gotcha. Well, I won't keep you too much longer. I
Okay.
really enjoy being able to catch up with you. And two things I'd like to ask you. If people would like to get in touch with you, how could they reach you, or how can they follow your work and just get to see more of what you do?
Um, well, people can, if they wanted to reach out to me directly, my email address is Greg S, as in Scott, my middle name, Dillon, so it's GregDSDILLON at bellsouth.net. My coaching business is DC, which stands for Dillon Coaching and Training. So it's DCAND and
Mhm.
T, DCandT.com. And that, my website. Other than that would be my LinkedIn profile. Um, so yeah, if you have any
Awesome.
comments or questions, anything I can do for you, don't hesitate to reach out. Anybody.
Awesome. And to get you out with this last question, from the first question I asked you, are you still who you said you were?
Am I still who I said I was? What do you mean by that?
From when I asked you, who do you say you are for anyone who doesn't know you?
Am I still what I, the way I described myself at the beginning of the podcast?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Sometimes conversations change a little bit to where it's like, huh, I didn't see that. So then maybe I'm a little different. But I like that also you stay consistent with who you are, like in a brief period of time versus like over obviously a longer period of time.
It's funny, the older I get, the more I look back at things that are becoming more and more important to me. And
Hmm.
I can see in many cases the roots of that love going way back into my early childhood.
Mm.
But it's like that root is getting tapped. It's that seed that was there way back then is coming more and more to bloom.
I like that.
So, mhm. Yeah.
Well, thank you again for your time. It was a pleasure speaking with you again.
Well, thank you for the honor of talking to you today, Asher. My pleasure indeed as well.
Yes, sir.
All right.